some idea of the perspectives I come from as an academic. I've kind of worn a professorial hat in two universities, the University of Utah and the University of Pittsburgh, both in the departments of bioengineering and in business schools. I've taught MBA students and all that good stuff. And I've also been an entrepreneur, so I kind of like doing different things. I have several issued patents, US patents, and of course, lots of foreign patents related to that. Founded 6 of the 9 companies that I founded are still going, if you will. And they cover a lot of space. So cardiac, orthopedics, cancer diagnostics, sports medicine, products, services, kind of a gamut of spaces, if you will. And that's what comes from being an entrepreneur, I guess. You kind of learn not to be afraid. You just jump and do. That's how it works. In a different organizations, and of course now I'm at InCube. So my background is I'm a double E by training. My bachelor's is in electrical engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology in India. I came here to this country 30 years ago, so Salt Lake City, stayed there for 27 years, got my master's, PhD, MBA there. Started starting my companies there. Started 6 there in Salt Lake City. Got tired of doing startups, went and became a professor at Pittsburgh, and after 4 years now I'm at InCube doing more startups. So I guess once you get the bug, it never really leaves you. So that's kind of my perspective. So the outline, when I look at artificial organs and stuff that goes inside the body, I kind of thought about the past as I call it the soldier-surgeon era, if you will. This was, if you will, battlefield-driven, war-driven. That's where prostheses happened, when people's limbs got blown apart. The docs on the field, the medics could experiment. Very quickly, they had to do something right then and there and came up with innovations, and that's how traditionally medical innovation has happened for centuries, if you will. In the present era, I would call it the engineer era. People like me who come from electrical or mechanical or chemical engineering and kind of look at things from a systems approach. Here's input and here's what you want, output, and you design something, some circuitry or some mechanism to make something coming in converted to something going out, if you will, and use very systematic tools to do that. And I'll talk a little bit more about how I've kind of done it in my experience, if you will. And that's been amazing. I mean, we all know, and you'll see that in the body, I guess, in the exhibit, that these advances that we have today are pretty amazing. But I don't think we're quite there yet. So I'll mention about the future, and this is me looking in the crystal ball. Will that happen? I don't know, but at least based on where I've seen this field go in the last 30 years, I'll try to project what's going to happen in the short term, when I say short term, 20-year future, and then I'm going to just kind of wing it and say, okay, this is what we might see longer term as well. So starting with the past, of course, the distant past, there's a bronze leg unearthed from a Roman village about 300 BC, dated to 300 BC. It's in England right now. And there's a toe from Egypt. I'm assuming it's from a mummy, about 600 BC. So this is a prosthetic device. It's not a natural mummified tissue. It's actually created as a prosthesis, if you will, for someone who has lost that particular limb. The war wounds have led to innovations, as I said, in the past. So, typically in the Civil War in America, that's kind of what created medical innovations quite a bit. So the picture of the guy on the right, I'm trying to also relate Texas stories, if you will. So that is a picture of a guy called Hanger. Hanger was an engineering student who fought for the Confederacy in the Civil War, was wounded, got one of those legs. So these legs existed before Hanger got on the scene. But he, just like any engineer, he said, hey, I can do better than this. So he took that leg. He had to have an amputation. He took the leg and supposedly he lamented, what could the world hold for a maimed, crippled man. So he added rubber bumpers on the top and bottom and hinges at the knee and the foot, so it could move in a more natural way. And by the way, Hanger, the company today exists. It's a multi-billion-dollar company that is headquartered in Austin, Texas today. So that legacy still lives on. This is another interesting leg tied to Texas, to San Antonio actually. Anyone care to guess whose artificial leg that might be?
Mr. Lucchese?
No. General Santa Ana. So after the Alamo, evidently he lost his leg and he got a cork leg made for him. This leg, much to the consternation of Texas, who've been trying to get it back for like 30 years now, rests in Illinois. And somehow some platoon from Illinois got their hands on it and shipped it back there, and they're not giving it back. So that's a cork, a leg made of cork, if you will. But of course, we can now do better, right? Coming back to the present. So this is still structure. So we are now going from outside the body, so providing structural support with things that kind of strap on, cable arms and that kind of stuff, to now inside the body. And then the stuff that made it possible is infection control. I mean, if you started putting stuff in during the Civil War times, you would die quickly because no one knew how to control the bugs, that are when you implant stuff and sterilization and all that stuff just wasn't people were not aware of it. But then we figured it out. So we figured out that hey, if we keep things sterile and we do things smartly, now instead of just being restricted to outside the body, we can start putting stuff inside the body now, for the most part. So that was a big paradigm shift from outside to inside, if you will. That was really enabled by modern antiseptic practices, if you will, surgical practices. Then people realized that we really had to take care of this. And then people realized if we can take care of this for natural stuff, why don't we start putting some artificial structural support now inside the body instead of having to kind of strap all this stuff on. So that's how the modern orthopedics world was created. Artificial knees, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at a kneecap, if you will, the top and the bottom. You're looking at a computer analysis of the forces on that knee from the top to the bottom. So now we could use computers to model what was going on with these very highly irregular shapes, because otherwise 30 years ago, if you will, even 40 years ago, you could only look at regular shapes like a square or a rectangle or a circle and analyze the forces. But computers gave us the ability to do all kinds of stuff with all kinds of shapes and sizes and model forces and all that stuff. So we started using that to now say, okay, computers, materials, also advanced material sciences. We learned how to engineer metals and materials and plastics and put in different elements of the chain and the polymers to make it behave differently. And so all those advances go in. Electronics also, as you well know, the electronics revolution is upon us. Miniaturization of electronics. Apollo 11 flew to the moon with 64 kilobytes of memory. We have 30 times, 100 times that on our smartphone, if you can believe that. So all these advances then helped us create, got people like me and my predecessors like, okay, we can do this. It enabled us to then say, okay, we can do cool things now, that we can now shrink things down, functionality down. We can design materials to fit the application and all that stuff. So of course there's the present day knee now. So going back to that drawing, this is the X-ray on the left of a knee joint, artificial knee joint, which is embedded. That's the photograph of how it looks outside the body. And then the hip joint, a ball and socket joint, if you will, which started being created. So of course so that was the first phase, right? We went from outside the body to inside the body, but we're still here doing structure. We're doing like mechanical things, braces and limbs now from outside to inside. The other kind of breakthrough in thinking, the second one was, okay, let's now focus, instead of form, replicating form, what it kind of looks like, replacing a bone or whatever. How about function now? How does it work? How can we start replicating and doing things inside the body to make it work better, if you will? So that kind of started things like the cochlear implant. I started working at a lab in Utah, the Division of Artificial Organs, in which the person who started the lab is kind of regarded as the father of artificial organs. He's a Dutch doctor, Dr. Kolf, and he was one of the early inventors of the cochlear implant, which is of course now being commercialized by other companies. But basically it's a combination of electronics, of really, now we're not replacing the ear, we are trying to now restore function, lost hearing for profoundly deaf people in this case, with a combination of electrodes, so materials have to come in play, with electronics, miniature electronics, so it can be visible, invisible, if you will, and unobtrusive as much as possible. They've actually gotten even smaller now. And essentially restore stuff, hearing in this case, to people who had never had a chance to hear again. And of course, once you do that, then you can improve on it, and you can go deeper and deeper into the ear into the right to the brain almost, to where the nerve signals. Then you can start playing around with modulating the signals that are received by the brain to then better restore hearing. So once you get going, you can kind of tweak it and improve it, if you will. This is an electrical analogy. There's a dizzying array of cardiac inventions, as you know. The stent is just a metal scaffold, basically. It props the arteries open for people who have fatty deposits on the arteries. Once the initial one was introduced, of course, people started putting stuff on it, like drugs and stuff, to help prevent tissue from growing and reclotting it again. This is a vascular graft, so again, for people who have bypass surgery, for example. You can do that. This is an automatic implantable defibrillator. So the founder, CEO of Intube, B. Rimlan, is one of the inventors of that defibrillator, the implantable defibrillator, for example. And it has saved many lives. And again, this is basically an implantable device that senses when one's heart goes into fibrillation, so it kind of beats very rapidly and uncontrollably. And as a result, it doesn't pump any blood, so you can die then. So the defibrillator then zaps the heart. It's basically a restart button for the heart, electrical restart. It zaps it with a high voltage, and then it's like a reset button for the heart, and it starts beating up again. Now, of course, there are external ones. Now you see external defibrillators in airports and other public places and all that stuff. They essentially achieve the same thing. The implantable one is, of course, is inside the body for people who are high risk. So this is a device that I'll show you that I had the chance to develop here. It's a LVAD for late-stage heart failure. So it pumps blood. So we developed a system by which the rotating part is completely suspended with magnetic levitation inside the pump. Blood comes in. It's centrifugal pump. It's like a water pump. It flows out of the device, and essentially it's to help people who are in heart failure, whose hearts can't pump enough blood. So they need that extra blood flow, if you will, to live a decent, normal life. Um, so this is, I'm kind of going to go into this example in detail since I'm experienced with it, is we took the technology of magnetic levitation, we made that feasible because I don't know if you've heard magnetic levitation, they use it for like the train from Shanghai airport to downtown Shanghai is magnetically levitated. It goes at like 300 miles an hour and yeah, boom, you're there quickly. But those are big things that you can do magnetic levitation with. Our challenge was to make it simple enough and compact enough that we could have a chance of fitting it inside the body. And we did that. It took us a long time, about 10 years to figure this out. So once we figured that out, we put that, packaged it into a system. It's like a hockey puck size that would go inside the body. Once we figured out where that would go, right here, so the blood would come in from the tip of the left ventricle. Typically it's the left ventricle that does most of the work and fails. The right ventricle just pumps blood through the lungs and oxygenates the lungs. So it doesn't, the right ventricle is kind of along for the ride, if you will. The left ventricle is the one that does the hard work of pumping the blood through the body, creating that pressure. And typically in about 80% of patients, that's what fails. So that's what we are supporting. We're not replacing the natural heart like an artificial heart does, and I've worked on those as well. We're just augmenting a weakened left ventricle to supply enough blood. So you figure out where the blood comes in from, where it goes out to the aorta. Then you have to figure out how to power the thing, and in this case you need so much power, there's no way we could do it wirelessly. We had to have a wire go across the skin. The patient would have batteries and electronics that they would carry with them with the appropriate alarms and things that they would have into the control. Fairly big market potential, and again, part of the whole deal is it took us, took me about 18 years and about $130 million to get this to clinical trials in the United States. We did US trials as well. But then of course, once you develop something, then you start saying, okay, how can you tweak it and adapt it? So we started adapting this technology for maglev. We made it into like a AA size battery here for pediatrics. Now we could make it this small because for people with late stage heart failure, they need 8 to 10 liters a minute flow for enjoying moderate levels of exercise. If I want to go for a walk or whatever. I mean, the whole point is to get them to enjoy a decent quality of life. Otherwise, why bother, right? So with the kids, though, these are newborns who are born with holes in their heart and they need corrective surgery and they need support while they're recovering. So it's not for long term, it's 6 months, 9 months or whatever. And so you really had to pump about 1 liter a minute or 2 liters a minute. So that's the reason one of the reasons we could make it this small. And of course, by the time we started it about 15 years ago to where we are here, technology had advanced, magnetics had advanced, we could get higher strength magnetic materials, our knowledge of how it all worked and went together was better, so we could just do a better job of engineering this device. And we got this through animal testing. And of course, on the business side, a smaller device would work very well. That was our plan, and I left the company by the time for less sick heart failure patients. So that's another thing we have to kind of look at which patient population are you serving, so to speak. The really very, very sick patients would need full support of about 10 liters a minute. Less sick patients, people who are not quite at the very, almost end of life with heart failure, they would do with a 2 to 3 liter a minute device, just a booster pump to let them, again, get back to a quality of life. So we are working on that. So just to give you an idea of what the process is of designing one of these things, we did 3D modeling on the computer, again going back to how computers have really revolutionized how we can design these devices now, making sure we can make it fit. Where does it go, right? Because there's this big stuff that we have kind of somehow fit inside the natural body. Then we use imaging techniques, and this is just an example of X-rays from heart failure patients that we use who had an existing LVAD. You can see how big that existing LVAD was, so we knew we could do better by a smaller size device. And just getting the angles right and where it goes, right, of our device. And then, of course, confirming that. So we took a model, and nowadays you can do, 3D printing. You can design models like in 5 minutes. So you can have it there. We had sterilized models that we used in heart transplant patients, who would, of course, allow us to do this evaluation in a hospital in Salt Lake City. That we would say, okay, can we evaluate where this fits before you get your heart transplant? Because you're going to get your natural heart, which is very sick, taken out anyway, and a new one put in. And before we do that, we'll put a sterilized one in, and for our knowledge sake. And the patients who agreed, we would evaluate the fit of our devices in there. So that's the outside. Where does it go? What is the shape? How does it look like? And the insides, then we use computers again to simulate the blood flow. How will the blood cells work inside the pump? Because we can pump blood, but if we are damaging and destroying the blood cells, what's the point again, right? So you want to be as gentle to blood as possible. So we use computers again to show us how to do it. Once we have designed the computers, we don't rely on computers alone. Sometimes they give you wrong answers. We build a clear plastic model, and this line here is what you're seeing right here at the outlet of the pump. We put particles in there that are about the size of red blood cells, about 10 microns in diameter, and then we pump the pump. And then we shone a laser on it. So these particles then reflected the laser light, and we videotaped it. So we could see what a blood cell would do inside our pump. And we wanted it to be a smooth flow. We didn't want the blood cell to be going hither, thither, not knowing what the heck was going on. Because the longer it stays in contact with artificial surfaces, the higher the propensity it is for the blood cell to then tell its T-cell brothers and the immune system saying, attack, attack, this is not good, something wrong is going on. So we want that blood cell to get in the pump and out of there as quickly as possible without it realizing what the heck has happened to it. So that's what we did. The other part, of course, was the electromagnetics. Again, remember, this is a maglev system. We have magnetic levitation going on. We have motors going on that spins the pump, creates that rotating electromagnetic field to make it all work. So we had to do a lot of analysis on the electric side, if you will, magnetic side. Then finally, when you think that you have an answer, you put it all together in a mechanical SolidWorks, for example, is a program that you can use. Hey, does it all fit together? We need all these little things to do this, do that. Does it all fit together? Can we make it? That's important, because if you can't make it, then what's the point? And then finally, we build it, and then start testing it on the bench in animals and all that stuff. So we probably did about 100 animals, calves in this case, with this device before we went to humans here. So Doug was a heart failure patient. He was a motorcycle salesman in Idaho, and he was about to die. He was not eligible for a heart transplant. He had a condition called an enlarged heart, and so this is the doctor the heart surgeon who put the device into Doug, talking about the evolution of the technology. This is the old generation technology that is still being used, by the way. And that was done 6 months later, doing wheelies on his motorbike, with the device still at him. We told him to be very careful with this while it's coming out. Saying, don't crash, please. He's enjoying life on his cabin in his lake in the mountains in Idaho, and that's the whole goal of these devices. Since then, he did become transplanted, and he's back to work as a motorcycle salesman in Idaho. So that's why we do these kind of things. So if you take all this stuff, in fact, there's a professor in Belgium, that's him, and this is his, Frank for Frankenstein, by the way, his bionic version. The face actually is modeled after him. This Frank is actually the Smithsonian, so it kind of incorporates body. He can even move and walk and do these kind of things. You see that he's having an artificial heart that was developed actually at the lab I worked at Utah, the Javik artificial heart. So that's the present. You know, now clearly as we go forward into the future, um, it's as I mentioned, it's the age of biology. We really understand biology, are starting to understand it really, really well. It was not so when I started in this field 30 years ago. We know how cells and tissues and organs are constructed. We are trying to duplicate that now. I mean, it's really a biological problem that we have if something goes wrong, and I think the long-term fix is a biological solution. I mean, it just makes sense to me. We also, another way of looking at it is we're coming down to individualized therapy. We are realizing that one size doesn't fit all. Mass customization, if you will. How do we do that? We do that by 3D printing. You know, you can have a scan. If you want to get an artificial knee today, you should have a scan done of your knee and then have a specific knee, artificial knee, ordered for your dimensions. And you can do that today. It wasn't possible before. You know, the company maybe made 3 sizes, and low, medium, high, and you got one of those, whether you really fit you or not. Imaging has been fantastic. The functional magnetic resonance imaging, I can see your thoughts. I mean, it's amazing, right? We can visualize how a thought forms based on a particular external stimuli and see what portions of the brain are firing here to make something with a reaction to it. I mean, that is incredible. I mean, I could never imagine that we could even begin to do that. So that brings new insights and knowledge about how does our body work. The brain is one thing with functional MRI. I mean, you see these brain-mind institutes pop up all over. That's the reason why, because now finally we start to have the tools by which we can begin to understand what the hell is going on in here. Yeah. So that's great. Genetic engineering, as you know, that's advanced a long way. Big data. We can now start collecting big data. I wear, a wearable jawbone device, and it collects everything that I do. Number of steps I do, how many hours I sleep, light sleep, deep sleep, all that stuff. And we're collecting all this data from a population that we never had access to before. Mining that data gives us huge insights as to how our health works. We never had that before. We're also going into combination therapies, right? We are now doing drugs and devices. That's actually an area that InCube likes to play in, if you will. I'll put in a little plug for InCube here. This is one of the 6 companies that we are making here in San Antonio. We're going after epilepsy. So we're going after an implantable device that is implanted here, but delivers via a catheter, a tube. It delivers a solid drug, a micropellet. So you don't have to take a huge dose orally, where only 1% of the drug goes to the site that you want it to, but the other 99% creates horrendous side effects for people, if you will. We deliver it directly into the brain where it is needed. So you only need very, very small doses and small quantities, and this shows the inside of the mechanism. And we surround it with all the usual suspects, if you will, a programmer for the physician, a controller for the patient. They can turn therapy on and off if they see a seizure coming on board. Toolkits to put the device in, to take the device out, and cloud-based data stuff. So that's kind of the vision of a system that we are working on. Others are working on similar things as well to take it to the next level. The other thing with using big data now is chronic disease management. We have a company here in San Antonio called iBridge that we are making because typically a patient doesn't have just one chronic disease, doesn't have heart failure, diabetes, coupled with obesity, coupled with some other issues that are going on. So there's a lot of things that are going on, and we typically in medicine today, we just look at heart failure. You have a heart failure cardiologist treat you for heart failure, but who then takes care of the diabetes part of it? Maybe you have another doctor take care of the diabetes part of it. And chronic diseases are one of the biggest impacts on our healthcare costs and our quality of life today in America. So we're trying to resolve that. The other fascinating thing which is coming online, has come online, some of them, is tissue engineering. So we basically take donor cells, this is just a cartoon here, from tissue that we want to then expand. We isolate the cells, we make many more of them, thousands of copies of those cells. We provide a clever scaffold, a structure, and in vivo, in vitro, sorry, in petri dish, we can grow stuff. We can grow the stuff in the shape we want, and then we implant the thing. So, for example, ears. If someone has malformed ears, or some people are born without the external ears, one side, use computers to figure out what is the best shape of the ear this person wants to have. Either grow it on the petri dish, you can grow it on the ear on a petri dish, or you grow it on the back of a rat. You implant a scaffold there and let the rat's biology help it populate that cartilage, tissue, the structure, and you harvest it, and then you implant it inside the human. So pretty far out stuff that is going on right now. The far future now, I'm kind of going and looking at my crystal ball here, is beyond nature, right? And all the stuff we have tried to do, we have tried to repair what is broken. Something is not working right. We need to get it back to normal condition. Now, what if we could now take our knowledge? Now, of course, there are some moral issues with it, ethical issues. Do we want to? But in terms from a technology standpoint, this is showing a multifocal implant that is pictured. But can we use it to auto zoom, for instance? Could we use it to see in the dark, near infrared vision, if you will? Then it comes back to Superman comics. Do we want X-ray vision, right? Because that was one of my favorite comics growing up, by the way, Superman. So the question, I guess, in ending is, which superhero would you want to be? You can pick and choose. Which quality do you want to enhance and expand on that you already have? Anyway, that's the end of my presentation. I hope it was useful to you, and I welcome